So I like to lame at sometimes. So let's put it like this. Lame strategies are easy to execute, but relatively hard to beat or to counter. That is one part of the definition, and it is certainly fitting for this build. I unlearned the perk Misery because it was getting too annoying casting over and over again without dealing damage for the most part. So we are using a Purgatorian which utilizes dead creatures. And the real absurd thing about this whole idea is that defense, intelligence and even speed do not matter at all anymore, since all those headless wights are dead anyway. So they don't need to block damage, they don't need to spell cast, and they don't need to dodge anymore. Only the critical strike chance from the speed value is kinda what matters. So we can just purely invest into attack bonuses, plus all of the spell slots are socked with Affliction. Affliction is a spell that causes one random debuff on all enemies. So if you attack a lot, this effect spreads rather quickly. This is somewhat important to protect the last living creature and take turns away from enemies with frozen, sleeping, snared, and so on. So the trait of the headless wights is called No Head Necessary. While this creature is dead, it has an amazing 50% chance to attack enemies at the start of their turns. And the trait Spin the Wheel is even re-rolling this chance to increase it up to 75%. The last living creature is called Thana. If it has 100% health, it has a 90% chance to avoid any type of damage. Attacks, spells, and even indirect damage. So the first version of Thana I used was significantly worse than this one. I forgot what it was, but anyway. I was lucky to find a Basilisk to fuse Thana with. Its trait is called Zap. If this creature does not take damage between its turns, all enemies' spell gems are sealed, which basically means they are silenced forever.
Forever, 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 ever, forever, ever.
Yes, forever. So they can only attack ever again if this happened. And since I'm also using Spin the Wheel, which rerolls all types of chances on enemies' turns, the 90% is rerolled to something like 99%. And since the Netherstone also has a 50% chance to avoid damage completely, that is also rerolled once the total chance for Thana to avoid damage according to ChatGPT is 99.75%. So there is a total chance of 0.25% of ever taking damage at all. Now, as ridiculous as that might sound, it still happens, since in a realm you have to fight something like 7 up to 15-ish fights, and considering enemies can attack and cast spells a lot of times in a row, in the long run it still happens here and there. So let's take a look at the Siralim planner. I'm almost exclusively using Hell Knight anointments for brute force reasons, together with Defy Evil from the Inquisitor to increase the armor penetration effect from indigestion even further. So I guess it reaches 100% at some point. Some creatures aren't actually fused because I wasn't sure if I want more firepower or more utility for now. Also because this build was already working quite well. Okay, anyway. I was testing this build at the Gate of the Gods, starting with 0 wins for this specialization, and now I have almost ascended it. I started with something like 14 wins in a row without any nether stones to something like 23 wins in a row with stones before I got my very first loss. Something like that. Quite okay result for this off-meta nonsense. Now I just figured out something else. So believe it or not, this build can actually win on difficulty 9, where enemies are level 15 million. So let's test it. Alright, the second fight took forever. I was already at something like 10,000% battle fatigue, and I'm not willing to do another fight. So I guess 2 are already enough to prove that it is somewhat working. So I put the link to the build in the comments and just some final words. I had the idea for this build a longer time ago with less game knowledge and such. And today in the morning I realized I can rebuild this one and make it like a quadruple times stronger. So I just wanted to show the basic version for now, and somewhere in the future I will revisit this one with a lot more firepower. But okay, thanks for watching and see ya in some days.